Most folks tossed it in a drawer decades ago. A yellowed certificate from some dusty hunter safety course you took back when disco was still on the radio. You probably haven't thought about it since. But here's the twist. That old card might be the only paperwork you need to get a concealed carry permit today. You see, a surprising number of states still accept state-approved hunter education as valid proof of firearms competency. Doesn't matter if it's from 1978. Doesn't matter if it was handwritten. If your name's on it and it came from a certified program, you may be able to skip the expensive CCW class, skip the range time, and skip the entire training portion of the permit process. States like Wisconsin, Virginia, Idaho, Arizona, Oregon, and several others all have it in writing. Hunter Ed counts, and not one of them is advertising it. Why? Because every time someone forgets, the state cashes in. They get another $100 class fee, another processing charge, another taxpayer overpaying for training they already completed when they were 17. This is where older gun owners have the advantage and don't even realize it. You already learned how to handle firearms responsibly. You've been hunting, cleaning, storing, and carrying for decades. You passed the safety test when safety was taught with live rounds and firm voices. So before you sign up for another 4-hour lecture from someone half your age, call your state's licensing office. Ask them point blank, does my hunter safety certificate qualify for CCW training credit? Because that piece of paper in your file cabinet might still carry more legal weight than you thought. And if it does, you just save time, money, and a whole lot of hassle by being trained before most of today's instructors were even born. You can't be rushed. It's the law. Walk into most gun stores today and you'll notice the same thing. Paperwork stacked, background checks buzzing, employees moving fast to get you in and out. That's the modern pace, especially when they see someone older walk through the door. The pressure starts early. Just sign here. It's all standard. You done yet? But what they won't tell you, what they'll never put on a sign, is that if you're over 60, the law is on your side. Under the Americans with Disabilities Act, seniors have the right to reasonable accommodation during the firearms purchasing process. That includes extra time, help understanding forms, reading assistance, or clarification on what you're signing. And it's not optional. It's federally protected. Hearing loss, slower processing speed, vision issues. Needing help to fill out a Form 4473 is not a weakness. It's a protected status. And if a store rushes you, pressures you, or treats you like a problem because you need 5 more minutes to get it right, they're the ones breaking federal law, not you. In Arizona, a 72-year-old man nearly lost his right to buy a handgun simply because he took too long finishing the paperwork. But once he calmly cited his ADA right to accommodation, the store's attitude flipped instantly. The truth is, most shops won't bring this up because time is money. Slower transactions mean fewer sales. But none of that changes your rights. If you're buying a firearm and someone's pushing you to move faster than you're comfortable with, you say one sentence and only once. I'm requesting reasonable accommodation under federal disability law. Watch how fast the tone changes, because the moment you invoke that right, the pressure stops and the law steps in behind you. You're not asking for a favor. You're invoking protection that was already yours. Ask for the senior gun discounts. Let's be honest, most gun owners over 60 have spent more money on ammo and permits than they care to admit. You've supported the Second Amendment longer than some of these younger activists have been alive. But here's what almost nobody tells you. Some of the biggest gun rights organizations are quietly offering you a discount and hoping you never ask for it. Take the NRA, for example. They offer something called a Distinguished Life Membership. If you're 65 or older, you can lock in a lifetime membership for $500. Sounds decent, right? Until you realize that the standard price is $1,500. That's $1,000 difference just for having more birthdays. And it's not just the NRA. Gun Owners of America, Second Amendment Foundation, and several others offer similar senior perks. But none of them are shouting it from the rooftops because, frankly, full-price memberships are good business when folks don't ask questions. Now, before you think it's just about a card and a sticker, let's be clear. These memberships often include monthly magazines, training materials, product discounts, access to legal defense funds, and sometimes even insurance options. So, yeah, it matters. Here's the catch. These organizations usually won't volunteer the discount unless you specifically bring it up. That's why this rule is simple. If you're over 60 and looking to join or renew, pick up the phone or send a quick email and say, "Do you offer a senior discount on lifetime memberships?" Watch the price drop in real time. You've paid your dues, literally. See, there's no reason to keep overpaying when the discount was baked into the system the whole time. But like everything else in the space, if you don't speak up, the system's happy to let you pay full price. You might be hunting for free. Every year, thousands of seniors walk into sporting goods stores and pay full price for their hunting licenses, tags, stamps, permits, the whole package. They fork over $100, $150, sometimes more. And the worst part, in many states, they didn't have to pay a single dollar. That's not an exaggeration. In places like Florida, once you hit 65, your regular driver's license becomes your hunting and fishing license. No special application, no paperwork, you're just covered. Turkey tags, deer tags, the whole thing waived. You've earned it through age alone. But nobody's going to hand you a flyer at checkout and tell you that. In Georgia, if you were born before January 1st, 1961, not only do you skip the hunter education requirement, but you also qualify for deeply reduced licenses or free ones, depending on what you're applying for. Dozens of other states follow similar models. Quiet exemptions, hidden discounts, and age-based perks buried in footnotes on the fish and wildlife websites. Why does no one talk about this? Because most licensing systems are built to charge first and answer questions later. If you don't know to ask, they're not going to stop the transaction to explain how you just overpaid. And many seniors just assume they need to follow the same process as everyone else because no one told them otherwise. But here's the truth. Lawmakers created these senior exemptions because they know most older hunters are responsible, experienced, and living on fixed incomes. It's written into law, but hidden behind silence. So here's what you do. Before you pay for your next license, go to your state's wildlife agency website. Search for senior hunting exemptions. Look for any language tied to your birth year. You might find out that the license you've been paying for year after year was already yours and no one ever mentioned it. Because sometimes the only thing standing between you and free hunting is a question nobody bothered to answer. Quick check-in before we hit the top 5. If you're still with me, that tells me something. You take your rights seriously. And honestly, that's rare. Most people don't even know these senior protections exist, let alone use them. So, here's the deal. If any of this opened your eyes, go ahead and tap that like button. It helps more folks like you find the truth behind these forgotten rights. All right, now let's get into the 5 most important rules you can't afford to miss. Most seniors overpay for permits. Every year, seniors walk into sheriff's offices and licensing bureaus ready to renew their concealed carry permits, and they hand over the full amount without question. Not because they have to, but because no one ever told them the price drops after a certain age. States like Louisiana have it in writing. If you're 65 or older, you pay exactly half of what everyone else does. A 5-year permit that costs $125 for a younger applicant drops to $62.50. A lifetime permit that's normally $500. It's $250 for seniors. And these aren't limited time promotions or backdoor loopholes. They're law quietly written into state policy and quietly ignored when nobody asks. Alabama rolled out lifetime pistol permits not long ago. The standard cost is $300, but if you're 60 or older, you pay $150. Same permit, same privileges, just half the cost. And then there's Texas, where renewal fees for seniors are lowered across the board. But you'd never know unless you read the fine print or knew exactly what to ask. And that's the problem. These discounts exist. They're legal. They're active, but they're not advertised. Licensing departments don't put up signs. Most websites don't even explain it clearly. If you don't check the policy or ask point blank, they'll gladly charge you full price and move on with the paperwork. For seniors living on retirement income, these cost reductions matter. You're not asking for a handout. You've spent a lifetime following the law, training, and renewing responsibly. What you're entitled to isn't a discount. It's recognition that you've already earned the right to pay less. So before you apply for or renew your carry permit, call your state's licensing office. Ask directly about senior rates. And more importantly, ask about lifetime options, because if you're still paying the same fees you paid 20 years ago, odds are the state's taking more than it should. Born before 61, you're already exempt. Let's clear up one of the quietest traps still costing older hunters time, money, and a seat in some classroom they don't need to be in. If you were born before January 1st, 1961, there's a good chance you're already exempt from mandatory hunter safety training and you don't even know it. No test, no online course, no range day, just your birth date doing all the work. But the problem is no one ever tells you. You might have stopped hunting years ago and decided to get back into it. Maybe you're applying for a new hunting license in your state and you read that hunter education is required. So you sign up, you pay the fee, you block off a Saturday. But here's what they don't print in bold. If you're old enough, you already qualify. Georgia makes it crystal clear. Anyone born before 1961 is exempt. Other states like Texas, Arizona, and Tennessee follow the same model. They know you learned firearms safety the old-fashioned way from fathers, uncles, or military instructors, not from a PowerPoint in a community center. Now, the training isn't bad, but wasting time on a legal requirement you already satisfied 50 years ago, that's a problem, and most agencies won't bring it up unless you ask. So, here's what to do. Before signing up for any hunter safety course, go to your state's wildlife or licensing site. Look for the phrase born before and see what the QTO off is. If your birthday qualifies, you're done. That's your exemption. You just saved money, hours of time, and a seat that could have gone to someone who actually needed the course. This is one of those rules designed to respect your experience, but only works if you know it exists. So before you sign anything, double-check your birth date. It might be the only card you need to get back in the field. Retired officers get nationwide carry. If you served as a law enforcement officer for at least 10 years and retired in good standing, you may already have one of the most powerful concealed carry privileges available in the country. And chances are no one ever explained it to you. It's called LEOSA, short for the Law Enforcement Officer Safety Act, passed in 2004. It gives qualified retired law enforcement officers the ability to carry a concealed firearm in all 50 states, regardless of local or state-level permit requirements. That means if you live in a place like New Jersey or California, where regular citizens often can't get a permit at all, LEOSA overrides that. It's a federal right. States cannot deny it. To qualify, you must have served a total of 10 years or more as a sworn law enforcement officer with arrest powers. You'll also need to obtain and carry official identification from your former agency and complete an annual firearms qualification similar to what active duty officers are required to do. Once those conditions are met, you do not need a state-issued concealed carry permit. But here's what's happening. A large number of retired officers simply never apply. Not because they are disqualified, but because they don't know it exists, or they mistakenly believe they need to follow the same permit system as everyone else. Some states have even tried to require retired officers to go through local channels anyway. But when challenged, federal courts have consistently ruled that LEOSA stands above state law. This isn't a loophole. It's federal protection for those who served in uniform. If you meet the criteria and want to carry across state lines or in jurisdictions with strict carry laws, this rule matters. Contact your former department's HR or training division. Ask them for information about obtaining LEOSA credentials. You may already qualify for national carry, and not using it simply means you're giving up a legal right you worked your entire career to earn. Congress quietly blocked a gun ban. This one slipped right past most people. No headlines, no debates. Just a quiet vote in a quiet session. And with that, Congress killed a federal gun ban aimed directly at seniors. Here's what was about to happen. Back in 2016, a regulation was rolled out under the radar. One that would have labeled thousands of Social Security recipients as mentally unfit to own firearms. Not because they had violent histories, not because a court declared them dangerous, but because someone else helped manage their checkbook. That's it. If you needed a representative payee to handle your Social Security benefits, something as common as a child or spouse helping with monthly bills, you were about to be flagged as a mental defective and added to the FBI's prohibited persons list. No hearing, no warning, no due process. That's not just overreach. That's a backdoor gun van dressed up as public safety. Luckily, someone in Washington actually read the fine print. And in February 2017, Congress voted to repeal the rule before it ever took full effect. It was close. It was quiet. And to this day, most gun owners, especially seniors, have no idea it even happened. But here's the real takeaway. No one noticed it the first time. What makes you think they won't try again? This rule set a critical precedent. The government cannot strip away Second Amendment rights just because you need help managing money. Help with finances doesn't equal mental incompetence. And the law now reflects that. But only because gun rights advocates saw the play before it landed. So stay sharp. If you hear about financial oversight being tied to background checks again, understand what's really happening. It's not about paperwork. It's about control. This rule was killed once. But rules like this don't stay dead forever. And next time, it might not be a quiet repeal. It might be a quiet list. And your name might already be on it. Age alone doesn't take your guns. Let's get something straight. There is no age limit on the Second Amendment. No line in the Constitution that says this right shall not be infringed until you turn 70. But you wouldn't know that from the way some people act, especially in doctors' offices, gun shops, and sadly, even family gatherings. You'd think getting older meant you had to hand in your firearms with your AARP card. And that's exactly how many seniors are getting pressured. By fear, by bad advice, and by straight-up misinformation. So, let's kill the biggest lie of all. Age does not disqualify you from owning, buying, or carrying a firearm. Not at 60, not at 75, not at 90. Federal law is crystal clear on this. The only way someone can lose their gun rights over mental health is if they are formally adjudicated as mentally incompetent by a court of law. That's not a doctor's note. That's not a diagnosis. That's not a family member saying he forgets things now. That is a legal process with a judge. A hearing, an actual due process. And if that hasn't happened, you're still fully protected by the Second Amendment. Period. Here's why this matters. Thousands of seniors voluntarily give up their rights every year. Not because the law took them away, but because they were made to believe they no longer qualified. And once you surrender those rights, especially in writing, it's an uphill battle to get them back. Many never do. They're told you shouldn't have guns at your age, or it's too risky, or what if you forget where you put it? But remember, risk is not illegality, and your rights aren't subject to someone else's opinion of your memory. Even being under guardianship doesn't automatically strip your gun rights in many states. It all comes down to that one legal standard, adjudication. So don't fall for it. Don't let fear tactics or lazy policies make you hand over rights you never lost. If no judge has ruled you incompetent, your rights are intact. Your age isn't a disqualifier. It's a qualifier. Because you've lived long enough to know what rights really mean. And the most dangerous thing you can do is forget you still have them. So folks, that's the rundown. 10 gun rights built for seniors. And most people never even hear about them. You've lived through decades of shifting laws, political swings, and courtroom chaos. But these aren't loopholes or gimmicks. These are your legal protections, earned and written into law. But the system isn't going to remind you. In fact, it counts on you staying quiet, paying full price, and following rules that don't apply. You've already waited too long to know this stuff, and being a senior, you can't afford to fall behind. Not when the law still has your back. If this helped you learn something others won't tell you, tap that like button. Drop a comment if you've seen these rights ignored. And if you want more of what no one else is covering, hit subscribe. We're just getting started.